Welcome back to the show. You're watching Morning Live, and we shift focus now onto the nation's future. That's most of the time what people refer to the youth as, the future of a nation. Now, there's been very robust discussions that have been happening over the last 2 days at the National Youth Summit. And that's where they've been discussing the National Youth Policy. And those members that have been a part of the delegation and the summit are challenging the youth to be more involved and creative. Now, the policy outlines the development plan for young people for the next 5 years. We're joined by two of the delegates to discuss the National Youth Policy with us, Tessa Dooms, as well as Danny Makumo. Welcome to Morning Live.
Morning.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start with you, Tessa. So just tell us what some of the challenges are that were presented by the Minister and some of the things that you guys have been discussing.
So firstly, this is a culmination of a few months that the presidency and the Deputy Minister, Buti Manamela, has been consulting with young people across the country. And so we've had an opportunity to give submissions on the draft version of the youth policy. And so this weekend was us consolidating that. And I think for this weekend, he really had just kind of put to us that firstly, we need to think about what kind of young people want to be, and we need to start reimagining what youth will look like in the future. And that's, I mean, this is a 5-year plan, so it's really about in 2020, what will young people's lives look like? And then in areas like economic participation, to become more economically active, to become the business drivers of the economy, in terms of education, to start to give new innovative suggestions around how the education system can be fixed. So young people really need to become involved in starting to be the menders of the problems rather than just those who flag the crisis in the country.
And what did you guys come up with through your discussions as what you guys would like the youth to look like, or what you would like these young South Africans who will then be more matured in 5 years' time, what would you like them to look like?
Well, basically, it looks at creating a holistic type of individual. We want the youth to be responsible. We want them to take advantage of the opportunities that the country has for them. And we have compiled this document that oversees throughout all the departments, all the problems that basically our country is facing. And we want to look at that as a challenge and close that gap with the youth leading the way.
So the big focus is on actually doing stuff, is putting this energy behind, getting people to be more active. And the youth have got the energy, one would argue, to be able to force this change. What was the discussions around the youth subsidy?
So the discussions around youth subsidy, the tax incentive, was really that young people weren't sure what the progress of the incentive was. So we're hearing reports about, for instance, 11,000 jobs that have been created through the subsidy, but we don't know who has gotten those jobs. We don't know which sectors of the economy those jobs have been in. We don't know what the sustainability, and I think that was one of the big questions that was raised around the tax incentive, is what is the sustainability of those job prospects for those young people? Is it just creating a short-term opportunity that still leaves them then in this kind of revolving door of unemployment, or is it giving them a skill set and giving them access to the employment market that creates for them sustainable jobs in the long run? And I think that was one of the big issues around the tax incentive.
What were some of the other challenges that came out, that young people are facing, that came out of the summit?
Well, one of the other things is that the strategies that we've been adopting, especially with regards to youth development, were quite not so robust, because, as she said already, they were not focusing on long-term sustainability, where we equip youth and we empower them so that they can be innovative and eventually they can determine in whatever industries their own future. We've been giving them more of a hand out than a hand up. So we wanted to just change that approach interdepartmentally, and we applaud the Office of the Presidency for doing that, because now we can actually monitor throughout all the departments what progress they've made, because we don't want to sit in 5 years and be pointing fingers, this is what should have been done, this is what should have been done. Yeah,
and 5 years is actually, it goes by really very quickly,
It does.
In your policy, have you guys, this draft policy that you guys have put together, have you got, a barometer or a benchmark that you want to achieve in the next 5 years?
So I think the policy has become a visionary document about what are the kind of challenges that we face and what are the kind of solutions we see, especially in terms of what different entities of government can get involved with. And what's going to follow this because policies aren't really good for giving very specific targets. So what follows this is the integrated youth strategy, which will, between now and June, I know they'll start, the NYDA will be leading the process of starting to put that together. And that will have much more specific goals and targets. But I think overall, the big things that we do want to accomplish is having more young people economically active. I think that's probably 30 to 40% of the policy looks at getting young people more economically active. I think another thing that the policy is starting to do is recognizing that youth is such a heterogeneous category, that a 14-year-old and a 30-year-old are in two very different places in their lives. Rural and urban young people are in two very different spaces in the country. And so we need to start think of interventions that are targeting young people where they are, that are targeting the wide range of young people, rather than speaking about young people as a broad category and not knowing what our impact is.
Yeah, and those young people will become adults who we hope to positively contribute to the growth of South Africa, and that's why this is a very important topic and something why your summit is so important. Thank you guys very much for coming in, Tessa Dooms, as well as Danny Makumo, who have been a part of the National Youth Summit, coming up with the National Youth Policy, a visionary document. We're going to continue speaking about these youth issues right here on Morning Live.